Welcome to The Leverage Show. Get more from your business and your life. Be sure to share your business questions and challenges with me at leverageshow.com, and I'll answer them on future episodes. So today, I want to share with you some insider secrets about joint venturing to help you decide if you should do joint ventures, the benefits and drawbacks of them, and ultimately how to do them right, because there are a lot of mistakes that cause a lot of heartache if you mess this up. So first off, in case you're not totally familiar with it, what exactly is a joint venture? Well, I'm talking about a situation where you don't have another partner inside your business. So you're not linked by corporate documents or by, your finances directly. But instead, you choose to work with somebody on a project that you're going to do together. So this could be the generation and launch of a new product. It could be a joint marketing campaign. There are a host of other ways and ideas for how to do it. But typically, it involves the launch of a new product. That's the most common form of joint venture. And so you both would take your part, you'd share the work, and you'd share the revenue. So it's sort of like a less formal business arrangement because it's project to project based. So if you worked with partner A on this joint venture, you may work with partner B on the next one, or maybe no one at all. Whereas if you had somebody inside your business that was a partner, they're with you for every single thing that you're doing. So it's a little bit less formal. It's sort of like the difference between hiring and outsourcing, because once that project is over, the relationship can be ended if you choose to do that. So let me share with you the advantages and the disadvantages of doing joint ventures. Some of the advantages are you can get a lot more done faster, which is a huge advantage. I mean, speed is everything in business. So the ability to actually go and get more work done faster is a really strong advantage for why people joint venture. You can also make a bigger pie. I mean, the fact is, if you are doing everything yourself or just your company or whatever, maybe the, universe of what you're going to be able to make on any product, whatever it is, $1 million. Well, if you bring in a joint venture partner, maybe you can expand that pie to 3 million. You can tap into their customer base, your customer base, and your collective thoughts about how you can grow it even more, and maybe you could both make more by doing it. You can also offload stuff you don't like to do, and this is big. I mean, as entrepreneurs, no matter what our business is, and no matter how much we love what we do, there's still going to be aspects of stuff that we're doing that every day we're like, I don't really feel like doing that. And this allows you to offload that if you get the right partner. You also diversify your risk. If there is a big time or a big financial investment in whatever project that you're joint venturing on, the beauty of that is that you get to share the risk, because you would, in general anyway, you would assume half the risk and they would assume half, unless you work out some other arrangement. Maybe it isn't totally financial, but that's basically how it would work. And sort of an overlooked advantage is that you have a sounding board for your ideas. You have another person who's a sanity check for you that you can go to and say, hey, I was thinking about doing this. What did you think about this on the project? And they can say, yeah, that sounds great. Or, well, I don't know, did you really consider it from this angle? And that can be really great as opposed to trying to make decisions in a vacuum. Again, as entrepreneurs, sometimes we can be blinded by our own ideas. We fall in love with the idea that we've got for stuff that we want to do, and we don't always have the ability to look at it clearly, analytically, and objectively to say, is this really going to work? And if you have a partner, they might be able to say, I don't know what you were thinking, but, teal on that looks terrible or whatever, So that's the advantage, another advantage. Now, the disadvantages, which are not to be overlooked, are that there's a loss of control. Anytime you involve somebody else in what you're doing, you give up responsibility, but you also give up control. And so you're going to have to compromise. You're going to have to work with somebody else on that. And that's not easy for every entrepreneur. You might not make more. This is another risk, especially on your first go around. With a joint venture deal, it's possible that you get together and you only make as much as you would have made yourself, in which case You had less work, but you didn't really make more. It can be an unequal workload. You know, the number one complaint I hear about from my colleagues and people that do joint ventures in my industry is that they get involved in a joint venture partnership. The idea is good, but one person ends up doing 75% of the work, yet they're supposed to split the money evenly. So it could end up an unequal workload. It could also end up an intense relationship. If you're joint venturing with somebody that you care about or somebody that you know, and you've always had a good relationship with, I mean, you do put that relationship at risk, because if things don't go well, it's sort of like you don't room with your best friend when you get to college. As much as you want to, the problem is if there are aspects of your personalities that clash, you end up not being friends anymore. And, you know, it's maybe sometimes better just to have a little space. And then there's always an honesty and a fairness risk. I mean, plain and simple. Some people will see things differently. Some people have different morals and ideas about what is fair. Some people have no problem taking and never giving. And other people will give, and get taken advantage of. And so there, you know, those are the risks. But just to sort of sum it up for you, all told, JVs can be a huge asset for you. If you do this right, you can make more and you can work less. You can have less stress. You can offload the stuff you don't like. And there are a bunch of other benefits too. But you need to do it right. And I'll share with you a story of, you know, what a joint venture partner that I've worked with. You know, we actually still work together because it's a great relationship. But first, let me jump in and show you how to do this right. Because there are a lot of tragic stories that JV has gone wrong. I can't tell you the number of people I've spoken to that have said, oh, I don't JV with anybody because I've heard so many bad things. Or there are a lot of bad JV experiences. Everybody I know is upset, you know, at the end of their JV relationship that it didn't work the way that they had expected it to. I've heard people complain to me in confidence that they were doing all of the work for the JV partnership. So those are definitely issues, and those are messes that you want to avoid. And by the way, these are not rookies. These are people that have been in the industry for years, and even still they mess it up. It's not that easy. But here are some things to consider in any potential partner. And these things are stuff that you're not going to find on your typical list of ways to find a joint venture. But I promise you, they're vital to how important this really is. The first is to get to know your potential partner personally. You don't need to be best friends and vacation together, but you need to do more than just chat about business once in a while. You need to actually go out for a cup of coffee, or if you're long distance, you need to actually have some conversations that revolve around stuff other than just straight business, because it's going to give you a glimpse into who they are, and that weighs in really, really big in terms of your ability to be successful long term. And here's why. What you want to really evaluate in a partner, all the, you know, material stuff and the concrete stuff like, oh, you know, are you willing to do this and do that? And how much money are you going to put in? How much? That stuff's all fine, but I take that for granted that it's pretty obvious. You're going to invest half, they're going to invest half, great. This is stuff that's off of the beaten path, but stuff that insiders know how you set up a real JV relationship. Mindset. You need to know how this person thinks. What's their mentality about business? Because if all they care about is churn and burn, and you're in it to build long-term, long value for your customers, that's not going to work. Their mentality is going to be like, hey, it's good enough, just, you know, shove it out there. And your mentality is going to be like, no, we've got to make everything work right before we do this. There's no chance of that working long term. Energy level. This is a big one that's also often overlooked. If you are somebody who's high energy and you want to work a lot and on all that, and the person you're dealing with is sort of like, I need about 14 hours of sleep a night, and that's never going to work, because you're going to end up, I can tell you already, you're going to end up doing 90% of the work. They just don't have that same energy level that you have. Commitment. And by commitment, what I mean is not just to you and the joint venture, But commitment to their business. Is their business some side thing that they're doing, but they make all their money over here? Because if it's your lifeblood, and for them it's a hobby, you're risking them losing interest or not caring. And that's too important for you to risk if it's your livelihood. So you need to know their commitment. Do they have skin in the game? Are their chips all in the middle of the table? Or are they sort of like, their values? I don't mean, what like religious denomination they are. What I'm talking about by values is when we get back to like the customer idea, like do they care about long-term value to the customer? Or do they care about, jam as many units out there as they can? Do they care about quality? Or do they just care about quantity? These are things that you need to make sure that you guys see eye to eye on. Now, if you feel the same way they do, it doesn't need to be right or wrong. If you're both churn and burn, fine, that'll work. But you just want to make sure that you're on the same page with that. Goals. And this kind of goes into the same thing. What is their goal with this joint venture? If they're thinking, well, if I could make an extra, 100,000 for the business over the next year, that'd be great. And you're thinking, I want to make 10 million. They might not be shooting as high as you are. So maybe they're not as committed. Those are red flags. You want to be seeing eye to eye on where you want to go with it. And what they like and don't like about business. I mean, plain and simple, you want to fit like puzzle pieces. You want to know that if you don't like X and they love it, and they don't like Y and you love it, that's a good matchup. I'll bring this back to my JV relationship. I enjoy all the aspects of it, but I really like creating new products, digital products, software mostly, and it's where my passion is. And so my offer letters and my sales pages and my websites were never quite up to the A-level standard of some of the other guys. And the person I partnered with is the opposite. He doesn't like really to do the part that I do, but he loves to do that part. And so it works because we have enough overlap and understanding about each other's sides to be able to give input, but we're not stepping on each other's toes. We have similar energy level. We were able to hang out at a conference over a weekend, get to know each other before we ever struck any deals. And we have similar goals in the way that we see where we want everything to go. And so those are things that's important to not disregard. If you're in a conversation and you notice that the person is going in a different direction than you are, those are warning signs. Those aren't things to say, well, we agree on most of the stuff. Don't worry about that. Those things are jugular issues that will be huge monkey wrenches in the situation going forward if you don't pick it right. Look, picking a joint venture partner takes time, but if you do it right, it can be a huge, huge asset for you. So you want to make sure that you spend the time to assess the synergy in your relationship. If you don't match up well, don't do it, no matter how good it looks on paper. If they've got way more partners than you and way more affiliates and customers and you want to tap into that base, that's great, but maybe you want to turn the agreement a little bit so it isn't an exact joint venture, because that's probably not the best way to do it. Maybe do a cross promotion or something instead. If you do have synergy though, you have the foundation for an excellent joint venture that'll be mutually beneficial and that you can use over and over again for repeated projects going forward. Remember, if you have a question, make sure that you share it with me so I can answer it for you on a future episode. And until next time, make it happen.